You don't have to look like or act like anybody else. You are a leader. Own that. Step into that.
This is April Hiatt. She spent 9 years building websites, then traded it all to build a movement. She shares the pivot that tripled her revenue and created a national community.
When people ask you questions and follow you, let them follow you. I promise it's when you let go a little bit, that's when it all changes.
Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of EJ Consortium, a finance consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. Today, I'm sitting down with April Hiatt, founder of Wise Woman Masterminds, a nationally recognized mastermind organization for women entrepreneurs building profitable, purpose-driven businesses. April spent almost a decade as a website designer and sales funnel strategist before making a bold pivot. She stopped building websites and started building a movement. What began as a personal search for help turned into a nationally growing community where women entrepreneurs gather with intention to grow faster together. April, welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I've been so excited to get into your story. And so before we start, I would love it if you could just tell people a little bit more about your company and what it is that you do at Wise Woman Mastermind.
Yeah, you bet. That's like my favorite thing to talk about. So, what I do really is I get women business owners together, put them in the same room in small groups, and then it's in that space where when women start talking about their businesses and their ideas and all the things that they have going on, that really the magic happens. That's when they're like, oh, you should do this, because we naturally want to help each other. And so when you put them together and one woman starts talking about her business and all of her ideas, then somebody else will jump in and say, well, you could do this, or you could do this, or what about this? And that's the mastermind experience. And I love it. It's my favorite thing.
So let's take a step back, and I appreciate you sharing kind of the mastermind concept, because I know in some business circles we talk about them so much, and I forget that not everyone, has heard of the idea of a mastermind.
Right.
But before all of this started, take us back to the moment when you, with your previous business, when you realized a website could literally stand between a family and the help they needed. So what happened and what started you on that journey with building out websites that were high converting and informative?
Interestingly, I started building websites when my son, so I have 3 kids, and my middle one is a boy, and when he was a teenager, he needed some mental health help. And that's actually really hard to find a mental health clinician who works specifically with teenage boys, because there's quite a few out there, and a lot of them work with adults, and then a lot of them work with girls. But that niche, finding those that will work with teenage boys, was really hard to find. And I had a friend at the time that said, April, I've got the perfect company for you. And I said, awesome. Who is it? And so she told me, and I pulled up their website. Very first thing I did. And I looked him up and I was like, yeah, no, like it just seriously, honestly, that was my first impression of that company, was their website. And I just thought, this isn't for me. And weeks went by and I talked to her again. And she said, April, how's it going with them? And I said, yeah, no, I just didn't. She's like, why? Why didn't you call them? They're so good. And I said, honestly, because their website turned me off. And she said, April, just call. I promise you, this is what you're looking for. Just call. And so because of her, I did. Turns out they were exactly what I was looking for.
Oh, wow.
And as my son started working with them, I got to know the owner, and it was a group of several therapists. And I got to know the owner, and I just kind of jokingly said to him one day, I said, I almost didn't call you because your website is so bad. And he goes, really? Like, he was just a man doing the therapist thing, and it had never occurred to him that the mothers that were looking to work with their company were being turned off by their website. And so I had that discussion with him. And interestingly enough, he said, well, do you want to build one for us? And I went, sure, let me just try it. I'll just do that. Why not? How hard can it be? So there's the kicker. If you ever say how hard can it be, it's always going to be harder than you think it's going to be. But you know what? I just dove in and he said to me, he goes, you know what, April, I really think you can do this because you know what moms are looking for. He's like, you can speak to them where I can't really do that. And so I spent about the next 6 months diving in, really learning everything that I needed to learn about it. And so I built his company's website and then he referred me to other therapists and literally by referrals that grew. I did that for about 10 years and I loved it. But after that, my kids grew up, they moved out of the house. And then I started thinking, I really need some people connection in my life. I'm not at the baseball games anymore. I'm not at the dance recitals. And I was good at what I did, but what I learned about myself, this is interesting. So I actually have a background in education, but what I learned is that just because I'm really good at something doesn't actually mean I really like it.
That is a great takeaway.
Yeah, and it was huge, and I was like, "I'm good at this, and I like it okay, but I'm not passionate about it." And so then on a plane ride to Cancun with my husband, I thought, "What am I really passionate about? What do I love doing?" Like, if money weren't an option, if I had all the time in the world, what would I wanna do? And I thought, I would love to go back into teaching, into working with women, into helping them grow more than one person at a time. Because with the websites and the funnel building and stuff, it's one person at a time, and that's great.
Right.
But I was like, how cool would it be if we could put lots of people together and I'm not the only person that knows everything, but everybody in the room knows something and they can share and help. And so honestly, I wrote it all down on a notebook on a 3-hour plane ride. When we were on vacation, it rained the entire week. So every time we were supposed to do something, I just got out my laptop and just like really just started brainstorming. And then I got home and funny thing is, I put it out there on a Google Doc because I know what it takes to build a website and the whole funnel system. And I am
Right.
not doing that if nobody wants this. So I'll just put my ideas on this really cool Google Doc. I didn't use chat because this was back before chat was like a big thing. It was really from the heart and really what I wanted. And I thought, does anybody else want this? And in a week, like my first mastermind group sold out. And then I thought, oh, but is this sustainable? Let me try this again. And so I did it again and it sold out again. And every month I kept adding to them and it just kept growing. And the coolest thing is it was those women that propelled me forward, that helped me keep going. And it was about, I don't know, maybe 6 months into it that these ladies even said to me, April, this is your passion. This is what you were meant to do. You're so good at this. Like, it's just a natural thing. And somebody even said to me, they're like, April, yeah, you're good at the websites, but we watch you talk. It's not your passion. Go with this. And so it really was that nudge from all of them that helped push me forward. It was awesome.
I absolutely love that. You had this pivot as your family was growing and your kids were moving out, and that my favorite part about what you shared was that you started with kind of what you're most passionate about and what drives you, and then
Yeah.
testing to see if there was a market for it before
Yes.
you just jumped in and said, well, I love this, so I'm going to do it. And then you listened to the women who were coming to you and you
Right.
continue to develop from there. And one thing I've been wondering is for the women who came to those first masterminds, what did you think was missing in the mastermind spaces that you'd participated in before Wise Woman, and kind of how did that gap become your blueprint, or what did the other women think was missing from things they participated in before?
Yeah, that's a great question because I literally built it based on what I wanted and what I saw was missing. So there are the word mastermind is actually used interchangeably with all kinds of different things. And so not all of them are the same. They're not good or bad, they're just different. And so what I was looking for specifically was a space where women could truly help each other in their own areas of expertise, and there wasn't just one person that was in charge that knew everything. I do think they need to be facilitated because it just does. It just
Yeah.
they need to be facilitated. But I walk into a room when I run these and I'm like, I know this stuff. Like I can talk to you about websites. I can talk to you. I don't do it anymore, but I can still talk about that. But I don't know everything about finance and I don't know everything about accounting. I don't know everything. Honestly, I don't know everything about marketing. I don't know. I mean, there are lots of areas that I don't know anything about. And if I can get, well, I was like, what would happen if I could get all of those people into groups, and the groups are about 9 people from 6 to 9. So everybody has a chance to help each other. And I could not find that in the world. And I didn't want just networking. I love networking. I attend lots of networking events. It's grown my business exponentially, but I wasn't looking for that either. I wanted people that I could talk about my business to more than just here's my name and who I am and what I do. I wanted to have a space where I could say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you guys think about that? And then have everybody chime in and help me move it forward. And that's the space I couldn't find. And so I thought, I'm going to make it. And interestingly enough, my first clients were my website clients because that was the audience I had already built and they knew me really well. And most of my website clients were women business owners. And so I put it out to them first and said, what do you guys think about this? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, that's what we've been missing. Yes, let's do it.
So I love that they immediately, are like, sign me up. And you have talked a lot, as you shared about the wise woman, that is really a peer-to-peer thing and not
Yes,
like a group coaching thing. So can you
correct.
talk a little bit more about why that distinction matters so much to you and what it actually looks like in practice? So I'm really curious about how the women get together and, it's not group coaching.
Right. Yes. So I've been in several group coaching programs and I love them, but they're typically focused around one thing. There's one topic. And so, for example, if I want to learn about finance, then I'll join a coaching program and I'm going to learn about finance. But in my business, I need to know more than just that. Like I need to know about that and learn that. But then when I'm done, I also need to know about branding and I also need to know about marketing and I also need to know about all the things. And I thought, I cannot afford to like hire 20 different coaches in all of
Yes.
these things and all of these different programs. And so that's kind of where that's the biggest difference is it's really lots of different areas and then the women coming together. So the way that it works in practice is I have both in-person groups and I have like leaders that have been trained and certified in their area. So for the women that want to come together in person, I have in-person masterminds. And then there are lots of areas where we can't do that or there's, women from all over. There are online masterminds too. And the way that it works is we meet typically every other week and anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours which sounds kind of long, but the in-person ones are actually 2 hours and the women like stick around longer. It's so fun to just watch, but something about that in-person connection is cool. And then we have in the beginning, we always share wins. We always celebrate each other, even the small wins. Sometimes women will come in and say, well, I just did this. I'm like, no, don't say just. It's a win. We celebrate it. We look at those. So we celebrate wins. And then we have a little 10-minute training from somebody in the group because I do firmly believe that those that are there have something to share. They know something. They've been in business. They know something. Let's share with the people right here. I don't bring in outside people to share, honestly, because it's almost insulting to the women that are in the room because they're already there and they're thinking, I know something. Let me teach everybody in the room. Why would you bring somebody else when I'm right here? Kind of a thing. Like that's the thought. Plus, then they get to know each other as they teach each other something, then they get to know each other. So one person, and we rotate that. It's just about 10 minutes. They'll share like a tip that's in their area of expertise. And then we spend the bulk of the time in hot seats that rotate. Usually we have about 3 women each time. And so you get a hot seat about once a month, maybe once every like month and a half. And you'll get about anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, depending on, what kind of time we have left, to really talk through something. So you're going to come to the group and you're going to say, I'm working on this thing and here's my question. Here's where I'm getting stuck, or here's where, like, there was one time we had a gal who's like, she'd been in a hot seat and she was working on this thing and we were watching her get it all done or whatever. And then she came back the next month and she's like, it's done. I can't, I'm stuck. I can't put it out there. Like, I'm right there. And then all the fears came in and the imposter syndrome and whatever. But we'd watched her create this and we'd been in the trenches, right there with her seeing it. So we could all say, hey, this is so good. Just put it out there, let's do it right now. And we could cheer her on and really help her with the confidence to know we're going to do this. And she put it out there and she had like 6 people sign up the very next day and, all the things. But sometimes we need that support from those women. Sometimes we just need to talk about our idea. Sometimes we just need to verbally process. The fun ones are the women that come in and say, okay, I don't have a question. I'm just going to talk for a minute. And then you guys tell me what you're hearing in what I'm saying or ask me questions. So they'll talk about their idea or their brainstorm. And then as I'm facilitating, they'll talk and I'll say, okay, now you just need to pause and we're going to respond. So just let us respond. And then we can respond to that way. And then at the very end, and then I always ask people their takeaways. I'm like, what did you hear? What did you get out of this? And it's interesting because I tell them, I say, sometimes what you hear and what you're feeling is not going to be what we're saying. None of the words we're saying are going to resonate, but it's because you're in this space of creativity that somebody says something and it sparks something completely different in your brain. And you go, that's a good idea, but hang on. And then you write down this other completely different thing. But that's also where the magic happens. And then at the end, we have what are called wise goals. And I asked, we have a quarterly goal that we work on, and then we have a weekly goal. And so we just set one goal, like what is one thing you are going to get done this week, no matter what, just one thing toward your quarterly goal. And then we check in with each other in between to make sure that we're doing that. And if anything comes up, you've got a whole group of people to help you. So yeah, it really is lifting each other up.
And the flexibility in how you've structured this so that people get different things out of it, that's really, shows the skillful facilitation that goes on here. And I particularly enjoy that you set aside space for celebration, because I think as women, we are often so conditioned to, okay, well, yes, I finished that, but like, what's next? I finished
Right.
that, but I'm behind on this. And we don't take the time to really celebrate those positive experiences. And so that in and of itself is so valuable because it builds a muscle of gratitude and a muscle of reflection, a muscle of celebration. And then
Right.
you actually get to the problem solving components. And I myself am a verbal processor. So that part of
Yes.
it also, just sounds fascinating to me.
Yes. Yeah. I'm amazed how many women are verbal processors, myself including.
Yes. I mean, that's partially why I started this podcast, is because I can hash out ideas and talk about things with people who are out here changing the world in their own ways. And we can also spread that knowledge to other people who are trying to figure out how they want to show up and how you can really take I think something that's powerful in what you shared so far is that you are taking the power of your passion and then combining it with community listening and really thinking
Yes.
about what the women around you needed, and then showing up to provide that, and then finding, hey, there's a market for this and it's growing. As I was looking at your site in preparation for this, there was a line that really struck me
Huh?
because you said you can make a living by yourself, but you can't build a business by yourself. And
Right.
so, for the entrepreneur who's listening now and they're trying to do it all alone, what
So
do you
hard.
think they need to hear right now?
Surround yourself with other business owners. As women, it's kind of like we have different types of friends. We have friends that, girlfriends that we just go hang out with and whatever. But sometimes when we need to talk about our business, it's got to be with somebody who understands what it's like to run a business
Yeah.
versus clocking in 9 to 5. It really is a different mentality. So I really think the fastest way to grow your business is to surround yourself with other women business owners also trying to grow their business. and just being in those spaces, yeah, don't try to do it alone. It's so hard.
I absolutely agree. I know that my community of entrepreneurial women that I surround myself with have a large part to do with why I show up and do the work that I do every day.
Yeah.
And, we often sell entrepreneurship as freedom, and that's kind of like the stopping point. We just say you have the freedom and the flexibility, but you often talk frequently about the loneliness that can come
Yes.
with it. And why do you think that we don't have that conversation enough?
Honestly, I think we're embarrassed about it. I think
Mm,
I mean, I'm the same way. I'm not any different than anybody else. I'll just put that out there. One of the biggest reasons I started this business is because I was feeling lonely. It was
yeah.
kind of different when my kids were home and I had stuff to do. I guess I didn't notice it so much.
Mm,
And then when they moved out, my husband traveled. I was like, I'm in my office talking to myself. I still talk to myself in my office. It's a thing. You really do start to feel lonely. And when you really feel it the most is when you're trying to expand and you have an idea and you're trying to move forward. It's the loneliness, but when you're feeling that, then the fears come in and that negative
mhm,
self-talk and the imposter syndrome, it's hard to get yourself out of that. It's so much easier if you can talk to somebody else who can build you up, who can see you, like who really knows you and can see your skills that either you may not see yourself or you might just be waffling right now. It's
mhm,
so great when it's somebody else that can say, April, you're so great at this. Or, Rachel, yes, you're so good. Do it. And just that little push, it helps with the confidence, it helps with the loneliness. It just helps you in general, I think, as a person, just grow yourself.
yeah. I absolutely love that. One of the things that struck me about your groups is that you keep them intentionally small. And
Correct.
especially when we're talking about loneliness and how this is one of the things that people can participate in to get out of that space where they're just kind of in it all alone. Why did you choose to keep the groups so small? And because I feel like just generally in entrepreneurship, that people sometimes get lost in scale and bigger is better for everything. So, how did you kind of resist the pressure to just pack more people in and create this really intentional small size?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of my business, I think I did for myself, to be honest with you. But it's easier to get to know like 4 or 5 people really, really well than it is to get to know 50 people. Because I would rather
Yeah,
have, 7 or 8 really good friends, really good people, business owners that I'm hanging out with, than to walk into a room of 100 people that I don't know.
right.
And they may all be business owners, but that is so hard and so uncomfortable, and especially for women that are introverts too. Like, and
Mhm,
honestly, they're the best ones. They're my favorite people to have in the group because they're so insightful and they watch and they notice all the little things
mhm.
that other people don't notice. But really, it's just a matter of, I think in general, we can get to know 5 to 10 people really, really well. And it's hard to be 50 to 100. There it just feels a little more superficial.
Yeah, going deeper into these relationships really, I think the dividends that you get from the relationships and how you're able to pour into people is significantly better when you have those smaller groups. And as a fellow, well, I don't know if you're an introvert, but I am. And that does make a difference for me in how I show up and engage in a smaller
Right.
group versus a larger group, which was why it was one of the things that kind of stood out to me about your Wise Mind Masterminds.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tell us about, you mentioned this hot seat idea
Mhm.
in the masterminds. So, what kind of makes this so powerful? And can you share a moment where you watched the kind of room shift for a member when they were in that hot seat?
Yeah, you bet. So I think what makes it a little bit different I do have a structure for the hot seat because it's hard to just say, Rachel, you're in the hot seat tomorrow. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, thanks. What do I do? So what I tell women to do is think about your business. What are you working on? And what do you need help with? And then what I tell them to do is ask a question give us a little bit of background, and then
Mhm.
ask your question again. Because what that does when you ask the question first is it tells people what they're listening for. And
Right.
then you're going to give us a little bit of background. Sometimes what happens when women are giving background is then they kind of veer off and they think this is their question, but then they go over here. And so that's why I say, ask your question again so that we all know, are we still answering the question you thought you were asking, or in the verbal processing, did you change your mind and the question changed? So we
Right.
want to make sure that we're helping you and we're answering that question. And then here's an example of this. This is actually one of my favorite examples that has just been so fun to watch is, and this actually happened so in addition to the masterminds, I have a conference that I run twice a year, but the conference is a mastermind conference. So women come and they have a question and they talk to ladies in the room. And there was a lady at the last conference that I had, and she came in and she has an AI business that she runs and she teaches classes. And then completely separate from that, she happens to be a foodie. Like she just
Mhm.
goes out and does food, and she posts stuff on Google reviews all the time. And her Google reviews get a lot of views, like millions of
Oh,
views.
wow.
Not just like a couple, like she really is a foodie kind of a thing. So we're at the conference and we're masterminding and she's talking about her AI business. And one of the other ladies says to her, "How come you're not on YouTube?" And she goes, "Why would I be on YouTube?" And she's like, "Oh my gosh, YouTube would be great. You should have a channel with AI tips and all the things." And she's like, "I don't know. Like, it's really hard to build a YouTube channel and it takes so much work." And this other person actually happens to have a very successful YouTube channel. And she said, "Not for you. It won't be hard." And she goes, "Why would it not be hard for me? Like it would be like everybody else." And she goes, "No, you know, all those 2 million followers you have on Google, they will follow you on YouTube because the two
Mhm.
companies own each other." And she's like, I don't know. And so the YouTube expert said to her, she said, "Try it." She said, "Just try it." She goes, "Put something out on YouTube, create a channel, put your AI stuff out there, and then next time you write a Google review, just mention your YouTube channel." Her YouTube channel blew up. Like it blew up so fast. YouTube actually called her and said, "Hang on a
Wow.
minute. Let's set this up right so that we can monetize it, so that
Yes.
we can, do all the things." And then what happened is the restaurants and the places that she was reviewing actually would reach out to her and say, "Hey, can we sponsor some of these YouTube things? And can we?" So, like, seriously, almost overnight, she started making almost 10 figures a month just from a
Wow.
comment that somebody said to her, "Why don't you have a YouTube channel?" And her saying, I don't know. Why would I do a YouTube channel?" But it's been fascinating to watch all of that happen just from somebody who could see the potential that she couldn't see.
Yeah, and put those pieces together for her because I wouldn't have thought about the fact that, oh, they're owned by the same company.
Yes.
There's going to be some, that's going to help with your transfer, even if I thought it was a good idea. And just having someone being able to provide that additional bit of context
Right.
is, yeah, a game changer and
Right.
transformed this person's life.
Ye Yeah, it's huge. It's been huge.
And I love this idea about the hot seat and the mastermind. And then another thing I noticed when I was reading about the hot seats too is that you also facilitate what you call strategic introductions. And one of the things that stuck out to me about that is that the kind of generosity that goes into just connecting people with no strings attached,
Right.
how it actually can fuel business growth. I had a mentor once and he told me that, and this was back during my first internship. So I was maybe 18. And he told me the most powerful people in a network are the connectors and to always seek to be a connector and add value to people. So, what made you think you wanted to start doing these strategic introductions and how has that played out in the development of your business?
So that's also one of my favorite things to do too, is when I get to know women, because I just happen to know a lot of them. I keep a spreadsheet of people because I can't remember every single person that I've ever
Yeah.
met. I just can't. But in the notes, like in the spreadsheet, I'll write down like what they do and what I liked about them and what their skills are and stuff like that. The
Mm-hmm.
women that are in my masterminds, I know them off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
other women, I like to, to get to know them too. But often somebody will just say something like, you know what? I really wish I knew a financial planner. And I'd be like, I know somebody. Hang on.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll know the name off the top of my head. And sometimes I'm like, I know somebody, but let me look up that person. And that's where the spreadsheet comes in. Cause control F, you can use the little find thing and I can search and whatever else. But yeah, I love doing that. I just think it's fun. I think it helps
Mm.
people. And honestly, my business, both my website business and Wise Women grows because people do the same for me. And, they'll refer me in. So I just think what you put out there is going to come back. So if you know somebody that can help somebody else, make those introductions for people, send out those referrals, and it always comes back to you 100-fold. I mean, that's not why I do it. I just know that's how the universe works, and it just does.
And I love that it just means you're operating from a place of abundance. And I love interacting with people who that's their approach to life, where we're not thinking about, well, if I do this, then there might not be enough for me, but just thinking, oh, these two people might really hit it off. And if they, work together, it could drastically improve both of their lives. And that's a good enough reason to do something. And just
Yeah.
finding joy in being able to help people without, expecting anything in return.
Yep. The fun thing I think too in connecting people together, sometimes I connect them together and I just say, I just think you guys would be friends. It's like you're
Yeah.
both really cool and you both are they may not be in the exact same field, but they're in similar fields. Like there are two ladies I connected. One is like a dog trainer and the other is a pet groomer.
Okay.
And so I was like, you know what? Actually, one, I think they would be really good friends. But two, there could be some really good like referral partnerships going
Hmm.
on there where, one's grooming and one's training. And I was like, there's probably some really good, parallel things that they could be doing referring each other. But also, I just think these two ladies would be friends. Like they're just both cool and I
I
just think they
love
would
that.
like each other. So I'm just going to introduce them and we'll see what happens.
I also keep a list because I can't rely on my brain all the time. Working memory only will fit so many things, often more tabs than I would like to have open in my brain, but this is one that's easy enough to like set aside.
Right.
So let's get into the business side of things. So you've got multiple revenue streams now. You have the growth memberships, you have the elite tier, in-person and online power circles, the conferences. And so as a founder scaling all of this, what is a pressing financial or operational challenge that you're excited to improve in the future at Wise Women?
So the biggest thing that I found in scaling is getting help. Honestly,
Mhm.
that has been a game changer for me. It's finding somebody who can work as an assistant for me. It's finding somebody who can do the bookkeeping. It's finding
Mm.
somebody who can run the payroll part, even though it's things that I'm hiring, but I still have to pay them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are recurring monthly.
Yeah.
But it's finding people to help me in areas that frees up my time to do what the
Mhm.
part that I like to do. For a long time, I'll be honest, I held on to everything very tightly. And I was like, no, I am the only person that can do this. It must be me and all of the things. But once I let go of all of that, I was like, wow, I got so much energy and so much time. And really, the more I invested in other people taking things off my plate, the more
Mhm.
time I had to grow the business in the areas that I wanted to grow it. And it
Right.
grew faster. And I was like, wow, the months that I invested in those other people were the months that I made 3 times the revenue, even minus, what I was paying them. Like they covered their own costs
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And so I was like, yeah, I'm never not doing that again. I am all about having people help me.
That's such a valuable takeaway for so many entrepreneurs who are listening, because I think we do get caught up, oh, I can't afford to invest in this. But what you were really doing was not just investing in a service, you were buying back your freedom to operate within your zone of genius, which is
Yep.
where you add the most to your company, which is why you saw that the growth result that you did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because sometimes we think, "Oh, I can't afford that," or, whatever. But it's interesting when you do the math where you're like, "Okay, I invested in that person and it cost me, $2,000, but because of that, I got $5,000. So, yeah, I'll
Right.
pay $2,000 to get $5,000. Like,
Yeah.
I'm making more in that." But it took me a while to get there. I'll be honest, it really did. But once I did, I was like, man, I should have done that a long time ago.
I think that's probably the most, when I ask this question, I think that's the most common refrain that I get is that when people, whatever it is that the challenge that they are facing or that they overcame, that they say, I wish I had done that before.
Yes.
And I always think when I hear people say that, the next best thing is sharing it with other people so they don't have to learn it the hard way. And
Yes.
then they can make a new mistake or they can have a new lesson to learn, but they don't have to make that one the same way that we did.
Yes. Yeah, and one of the other things I tell women about that too is you don't have to start huge. When you start
Yes.
passing things off and hiring people, do it what's comfortable for you, but do it a little bit at a time. And the more that you do that, the easier it becomes. I pass off a lot of stuff now, but I didn't start there. And I don't think mentally I was going to be able to start there. I needed to start small, a little bit at a time, start with an assistant, give her a few things, set up the standard operating procedures, give
Right.
her, and then the more I start to trust her, the more I give her and the more I do. And now I'm like, okay, she's good. Okay, now I can hire this other person. Okay, now they're good. Okay, now I'm going to hire this other person. But I could not have started hiring, 3 to 4 people right in the beginning. I had to start small and work up to it. And that helped me mentally too.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned the standard operating procedures because that's the one mistake I see often when people initially bring someone on is that we, especially if people haven't been trained as managers, they often manage by abdication and they just kind of dump something onto someone and
Yep.
expect them to do it the same way and then it doesn't work and then they grab everything back to their chest and say,
Yep.
"See, I knew that I had to be the person to do it all." And then they find themselves stuck in that same place because they're holding on to too much.
Yes. Yeah, and honestly, the hardest part that actually was the hardest part for me in handing stuff off because all the SOPs, all the how to do stuff was in my head. I could
Yeah.
do it all without thinking about it, but when I had to train somebody else to do it and then sit down and go, "Okay, here's what I'm doing," and make a video and walk
Yes.
them through it and then answer questions, it took longer. Like, it really
Yes.
does take longer, and that's what we think is, "Oh my gosh, it's so much easier and faster if I do it myself." That's true one time, but if you're doing it
Right.
20 times,
Yes.
record yourself one time doing it, talk through it as you're doing it, and then hand that off to somebody else. Have them make the SOPs because then they're going to know what's missing in that as they walk
Yes.
through it, and then they can ask you to fill in the blanks. And now they've got a great document. They've got the video. They've got all the things. And now you're like, oh, that thing that I was doing 20 times. Yes, it took longer when I was recording it and talking somebody through it. So one time it took longer, but the other 19 times, I didn't have to do it, so it saved lots of time.
Yes. The way that you just illustrated designing the SOPs, I hope that people who are listening take that away because that's such an excellent approach because it helps the person who is drafting the SOP. Helps them to learn the process. It helps it to get out of your head. And as you were talking through this, it reminded me that you have a teaching degree because
Yes, I
that is
do.
not how, yes, most founders go about creating SOPs, but it is definitely a great system. And on the topic of the teaching degree, a question that I had in the back of my mind is that when you're teaching women entrepreneurs in a way, what has that taught you about leadership?
This is going to be an interesting answer. It's probably not what anybody thinks that I'm going to say. But what it's taught me is to step into it and be who you are and let people see that and then let them follow you. And what I mean by that is sometimes as women entrepreneurs, we kind of step back a little. Not everybody does this, but
Yeah.
sometimes, we'll step back and we'll be like, oh, nobody really wants to follow me. Like, I'm not really a leader. Yes, you are. In your area of expertise, you are a leader. Own that. Like, step
Right.
into that, own that. And when people ask you questions and follow you, let them follow you in your, like, they're not going to follow me in area, I'm not a bookkeeper. They're not going to follow me there, but
Right.
your area, let that happen and step into that and own it. Just own what you know, own who you are, be who you are. You don't have to look like or act like anybody else. You can truly be you, and people will follow that. People will learn from it.
I know you said that that wasn't the answer that people would expect, but I think that was a really powerful answer.
Thank you.
And another thing that, I've heard you kind of talk about is you say that when women gather with intention, everything changes. So if a woman right now is listening and she's on the fence about whether or not she's ready for a mastermind, what would you tell her?
She is. That's exactly
Just
when
that
you need
simple.
one, honestly, is when you're thinking, I don't know if I need this or not. Usually you're thinking that because you're thinking, I still want to do this myself. And it's
Hmm.
hard to let go. And I get it. It is hard to let go sometimes. But I promise it's when you let go a little bit and you let other people in and you let them help you, that's when it all changes.
And on your website, because you're a teacher and because you have this background in websites that actually speak to the pain points of the audience that they're trying to connect with, I think your website does an excellent job when it's describing the different types of masterminds and ways to engage and really pointing out, like, if you're here, this group is for you. If you're here,
Right.
this group is for you. And that's something that I hope people take away when they think about this episode is that when we are showing up to connect with potential customers, we always start with what do they need? What pain point are we solving for them? And that's how we should design marketing materials, websites, that it all starts with the pain we're solving for the customer, and other things will fall into place.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I hear from women too is they think, well, I'm like newer in my business. I've only been doing this for a couple of years, or I don't have anything to offer. In fact, I met with a gal who's in one of my masterminds, and I offer one-on-one calls. Like, just they can come, they can ask me questions. We can talk about the best ways to, help them and stuff like that. And she said, April, I don't know how to participate sometimes. Like, I don't, she's a licensed therapist. And she said, and sometimes they're talking about marketing and I don't know anything about marketing. So how do I participate? And I said, you know what? You are a consumer. So
Mhm.
what would you want to hear as a consumer? You don't need to be a marketing expert to tell somebody what you would want to hear when they're talking about their product.
Yeah.
I thought my whole website, I got into the website business because somebody said, well, you know what people want to hear. So you should,
Right.
like, you don't have to be an expert in everything to participate or to help other women in their businesses, because often you actually are their ideal client. So they want to know what you're thinking and what resonates with you. And that's sometimes more powerful than what the marketing expert is going to say, because you know what you want to hear and you can help people with that. So don't ever discount, where you are in your business or what you know versus what you don't know. It's not about what you don't know. Everybody has something to share and everybody has a perspective that's valuable.
That is so true. And I hope that people really take that to heart. April, before I let you go, the Wise Woman Spring Conference is coming up. Tell us more about what's in store and how people can get involved.
So I have two conferences a year. The one coming up is April 3rd and 24th, and it's in the Salt Lake City area. And I have women that fly in from all over the US that come to the conference. And it truly is a mastermind conference. You're going to come in, and first of all, I do also recognize that there are a lot of introverts that come to this conference. And I recognize that it's hard to walk into those rooms. So I make sure that it is set up in a way that you feel welcome as soon as you walk in the door. Somebody is greeting you, somebody's welcoming you, somebody's going to show you to your table where you're going to sit at. I get rid of all of that awkwardness. We assign out the tables and somebody's helping you get there. And then there are 4 different times during the conference. And I tell people, bring a question, bring a business idea, bring something to talk about. And we're going to go around those tables. And they're small. There's about 5 people at each table on purpose. And we're going to talk about, whatever your idea is at the table with all those people, and you're going to have a lot of time. Then we do have some breakout rooms with some speakers, and I tell the workshop trainers, I'm like, this is a training. Like, they have to walk away with something. I don't want a pitch fest. Like, I don't want you just a 45-minute infomercial. Nobody likes those. They're boring. So if you're teaching AI, teach me something about AI. Let me pull out my phone. Show me how to use it. So it's hands-on. We're learning stuff. And then we're going to come back and we're going to mastermind again. And we're going to have activities where you get to know the people at your table. I rotate who is sitting at each table. So in the morning, you're sitting with a group of 4 other people. In the afternoon, you're going to sit with 4 different people because you can get to know 4 people at a time. Yeah. And then one of the coolest things that I do for this conference that I actually get the most feedback on this one thing, which is funny, is I have what's called an open swag table because I think that the ladies that are in the room should be the ones promoting their business. Like, I could go out and get all kinds of corporate sponsors and whatever else, but why don't we promote the ladies that are here? Like, these women are business owners. They're in the room. So let's support each other and share with each other. So I literally will line up like those 8 feet tables. I have a whole wall with open tables. And when you check in, I give you an empty bag. You can come in and then you can take the stuff that you want. So if you meet somebody, then you're like, oh, Rachel, yeah, what's your theme? Let me go grab it. So instead of you going home with a bunch of business cards, you're actually going home with things from the people that you met in the room, and then you're going to remember them better. I also have a custom app that's being built. And so everybody in the room will be on the conference section of that app. So once you get home, you can still connect with all of those ladies that you met or that you didn't meet. And so the idea is really to learn something and to help promote your business, grow your business, and build relationships with the women in the room.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. This conference, you just have designed it so beautifully and intentionally. I was actually bummed because as I was looking at the dates, I have another conference I'm attending that overlaps half.
Oh, darn,
But
yeah.
I will be on your email list because I definitely want to attend one of them in the future.
Yeah, the one in the fall will be in Houston. So there's one in
Okay.
Houston, September 17th. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yes. So we'll have the dates for both of those in the show notes for everyone. That was April Hiatt, the founder of Wise Women Masterminds, showing us what happens when a woman stops building for clients and starts building for community. If you're a woman business owner who's tired of growing alone, visit wisewomanmasterminds.com to apply for a mastermind group. And if you want to experience the power of over 100 wise women gathered in one room, like April said, the Spring Conference Power Circles is happening April 23rd to 24th in the Salt Lake City area, and you can head to wisewomanconference.com to grab your spots. And links are in the show notes. And as always, if this conversation resonated with you, here's what you can do. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got episodes dropping regularly with more visionary founders and changemakers who are reshaping how business gets done. And if you found value in today's episode, leave us a rating and review. It helps other values-driven leaders find us. Until next time, keep leading with intention, scaling responsibly, and building businesses that matter.